Okay, another exciting, amazing week for The Mandalorian. I was so excited. This episode wasn't as action-packed as the first episode, but it was still very fun to watch. I guess you could say this was more based off the Alien movie series, and you'll understand why when I explain it in a bit. So, like I did in the what I did in the last episode of Some of Us, I basically kind of gave a recap of the episode for those who've seen it and maybe forgot about it, and then towards the end, I'll give like my small review of what it was like. So, like before, the last episode, I read the recap of a Vox. This recap I will be reading off of comicsbeat.com. So, the episode, it was chapter 10. The episode was titled The Passenger. I guess you could say Baby Yoda was the person who got in a lot of trouble this episode, because he was the one who kind of created the problem for the episode. So it was really nice to have a little distraction with all of this politics stuff going on. So it was nice to sit down after school, sit down on my couch, not to boast or anything, but I have a hand-me-down 70-inch flat screen with surround sound, and it's really nice to have when watching amazing filmography like The Mandalorian. Excuse me, my nose is a little runny. Mando's still covered in this dry goop from the crate dragon, and he's riding on his speeder bike through the sands of Tatooine, and you see some of these goons. Presumably, maybe they're just goons, and they're like burying this rope in the sand, and they get on each side, and when Mandalorian goes, they pull the rope, flips him off the speeder bike. Sad Baby Yoda noises. It crushed my heart when Baby Yoda was crying. So he's speeding super fast back to the Razor Crest with Boba Fett armor and with Baby Yoda and a giant piece of crate dragon meat. Turns out these goons are bounty hunters, and they're there for the child. Mando and the baby, they go tumbling. Like I said, Baby Yoda sad noises. Jeez, it broke my heart. They barely make it out of the counter alive, but the guy who took Baby Yoda hostage kind of sounded like a Jawa, so maybe he was like a rogue Jawa. But he's got Baby Yoda at knife point, and you're just thinking, God, please don't hurt the child. And so Mando's like, what is it that you want? And this Jawa bounty hunter kind of points to Mando's jetpack, and he's like, sure, take the jetpack. If you take the child, then you're gonna have the same problems that I'm having. So the Jawa is like, the bounty hunter Jawa is like, he doesn't say anything, but he takes the jetpack, and then as he's running off into the sunset, past the speeder bike wreckage and stuff, Baby Yoda kind of does this hurt child thing, and he runs with his hands out and grabs Din Djarin's leg, the Mandalorian's leg, and it's just the cutest thing ever, and he's making this sad Baby Yoda noises. And then look back to the the bounty hunter Jawa, and then it cuts to Mando, and he hits the jetpack control button on his arm, and then the Jawa flies straight up into the air, and then all you see is this like cloud of dust, and then a body hit the ground, and then the jetpack flies back to him, and then hard cut to Mando with the child strapped around his waist, and he's kind of a pack mule. He's carrying everything that was on the speeder bike, and so he makes his slow return back to Mos Eisley with the Boba Fett suit, the baby, and don't forget the huge chunk of crate dragon meat. So we get to see Pelimoto again, played by Amy Sedaris, and luckily for the Mandalorian, she has another lead on where more Mandalorians could be, but it'll cost 500 credits because she's playing that Star Wars card game. I do not remember what it is called. Here, let's Google it real quick. Star Wars card game. Sabacc. They're playing Sabacc in the Mos Eisley Cantina, and across from her is this guy named Dr. Mandible. He just looks like a giant ant. And Dr. Mandible basically tells Pelimoto, obviously we don't understand because he's talking in this alien dialect, but basically what Pelimoto says is that Dr. Mandible knows... Dr. Mandible will tell you where to go. It'll just cost you 500 credits. You gotta respect the hustle. And so Dr. Mandible loses. He gets angry. You hear some angry noises from him. Then we go back to the hangar with Pelimoto, and they're roasting the crate dragon meat. Pelimoto's like, hey, you better not burn that crate dragon meat. It's really delicious. And then it cuts to Baby Yoda, and he's looking up, and he's making cooing noises. And he looks... basically, this whole episode is... To sum it up, this whole episode is... Baby Yoda hungry, Baby Yoda eat, Baby Yoda get in trouble, everybody else gets in trouble. That's basically the whole episode. So they're back at the hangar, eating the meat. Dr. Mandible's contact arrives with the promise to lead him to the Mandalorian covert to find some more Mandalorians. He hopes that the covert is where, back in season 1 in Navarro, there were in the sewers a bunch of Mandalorians, and then towards the end of season 1, they all fled because the Empire, like the Neo Empire, invaded, and so they left. So he's hoping that Dr. Mandible's contact knows where these Mandalorians are, and hopefully they're the Mandalorians from Navarro. But there's not really any confirmation. So in exchange for the details, he must take the passenger to the estuary moon of Trasic, and he must do it at sublight speeds because the hyperspeeds kills her spawn. So what am I saying by that? So Dr. Mandible's contact, they don't explain her species. Kind of looks like a leopard gecko, but also kind of looks like a frog. They just call her Frog Lady, and she doesn't speak any English. And Pelimoto is like, oh, I've known her for years and stuff. And as soon as they start flying away, she's like, actually, I only met her yesterday. So the Frog Lady, to sum it up, she has this clear tube backpack full of liquid and eggs. And these eggs are probably about the size of a billiard ball. And the frog lady basically says that she has to find her husband, and her husband knows about the Mandalorians, like where the covert of the Mandalorians are. But I have to get the eggs to my husband because these are my last line of children, and they need to be fertilized. They just need to be fertilized, but they can't travel at hyperspeed because hyperspeed can kill the frog eggs, like the roe. And so they have to travel at sublight speed. Sublight speed basically is just traveling at regular speed through the galaxy, and they have to get to the estuary moon of Trask, which apparently pretty far away. So sublight speed is like... Mando describes it as super dangerous because that's where bandits and basically rebel police hang out, and he doesn't want to get caught into that. Frog Lady is voiced by D. Bradley Baker. He's also known for voicing the clones in the Clone Wars. So without the use of the hyperdrive, travel to Trask, it'll be slow, vulnerable to pirates, warlords, basically open space. Unfortunately for the frog lady's eggs, I just said frog legs. Frog lady's eggs, pirates and warlords aren't the only concern for their existence. Baby Yoda, a fan of frogs and clearly a fan of eggs, looks at her container like he's looking at a delicious snack. Like I said, Baby Yoda is hungry 24/7 in this episode. This is how the whole conflict arises and stuff. So while Mando and the Frog Lady get settled in the cockpit, I swear that's not a joke. They get actually settled. They sit down, strap in. Not a euphemism. He's got the container open, and he's feasting on the eggs like there's no tomorrow. Then Mando sees the child eating the eggs, and he's like, "No, stop it. You need to get some sleep. Do not eat these eggs." So he's awakened to the sound of someone trying to get in contact with the Razor Crest. Good news, it's not bandits, pirates, or warlords. Bad news, it's Republic X-Wings sweeping the airspace. There's two people, Captain Carson Teva, played by Paul Sun-Hyung Lee, and Trapper Wolf, played by Dave Filoni. Now, if you don't know who Dave Filoni is, he helped direct and produce some of the Mandalorian episodes in season 1 of The Mandalorian, and he was also producer and director of the Clone Wars. Let me fact check that. I can't type today. The Clone Wars. Producer... writers. Instead of that, how about we just look up Dave Filoni? Now, okay, so Dave Filoni's name in this is Trapper Wolf. Now, you may not know, Dave Filoni is an American animation director, voice actor, television writer, television producer, and animator. He worked on Avatar: The Last Airbender, The Mandalorian, and on the theatrical film and television series Star Wars: The Clone Wars. He is basically a super nerd who got to become a writer, director, and producer for Star Wars. So he's like everyone. He looks up to everyone. So his name, the Republic X-Wing name for Dave Filoni, is Trapper Wolf. I don't remember, but he has a lot of connections with wolves, and that correlates back to the Clone Wars. So they're searching for these Republic Sentry X-Wings that are sweeping the airspace, and got in contact with the Razor Crest with the Mandalorian. They're searching for Imperial holdouts and ask Mando for Ping, who tries to evade their prying. So if you don't know about the Razor Crest, it's a super old ship, and it was made before... basically, it doesn't have a VIN number. VIN numbers are super important for cars, because that's basically like their birth date and social security number. And the Razor Crest doesn't have one of those. And that could be a big no-no for the Mandalorian, Mando. And he's just kind of like swerving around the answer. So this is where we find out that the Frog Lady is likely a prison escapee from a prison transport. Great. Realizing that the jig is up, Mando fires the crest into action and leads the X-Wings on a chase through the clouds and into the canyon of an ice planet. Now we'll talk about the ice planet in a little bit. But the cinematography, I know this is just CGI, but the camera is basically fixed on the left and right shoulder of Mando. And when these X-Wing Republic sentries are sitting to the left and the right of the Razor Crest, you get a back and forth of Dave Filoni and Paul Sun-Hyung Lee. Their characters keep going back and forth, talking about, hey, we really need basically your VIN number or your ping. But what's really cool is that if you know what an X-Wing is, in attack mode, their foils, their S-foils, which are the things on the side of an X-Wing, they open up in attack mode. But when they're not in attack mode, they're closed. So they're sitting there, and then all of a sudden it's like quiet for 30 seconds because the Republic sentries are like, hey, go on another channel. We need to talk about this for a second. And basically it's super quiet, and you're probably thinking, oh no, this is not good. And then all of a sudden it's quiet, and then it looks over to Dave Filoni's Trapper Wolf character, and then all of a sudden the S-foils open up, and you're probably thinking in your head, oh shit. So Mando fires the Razor Crest into action and leads the X-Wings on a chase through the clouds and into the canyon of an ice planet. Now, if you're good on your lore and you are an avid Star Wars fan, the only time there has been an ice planet in Star Wars canon with a canyon is the planet Ilum. Now, I know the people who listen to this are my mom, dad, brother, and people who don't play a lot of video games. But in Star Wars Fallen Order, one of the planets that you can visit is a planet called Ilum. Ilum is a planet, an ice planet with a canyon that basically is like the equator of the planet is this canyon. And Ilum is a place where young Jedi Padawan go to seek out their Kyber crystal for their lightsabers. A Kyber crystal is the thing that basically powers a lightsaber, and you've probably heard of Kyber crystals before in Rogue One. Darth Vader is they're farming Kyber crystal from around the universe to build the Death Star, and that's what the laser comes out of the Death Star is from a bunch of Kyber crystal. But Kyber crystals also they power lightsabers. Sith lightsabers. Shut up, dog. The dog's so loud. Jeez, such a yappy dog. Sith lightsabers are synthetic kyber crystals. That's usually why they're red. Jedi Padawans also get to pick the color. Well, they don't really get to pick the color of their lightsaber. The color of the lightsaber depends on what rank of Jedi they are. But Ilum is super important. It doesn't get stated in The Force Awakens, which is Star Wars Episode 7. It doesn't get stated that the Starkiller base is Ilum, but many fans have pointed out that the Starkiller base is an ice planet with a canyon trench across the equator of the planet. Now, if you've read up on Star Wars Fallen Order, when you travel to Ilum, in the trench, there's still stormtroopers. They're not the First Order yet, through Kylo Ren, but the Neo Empire basically has a base on Ilum already, and it looks like there's a bunch of like farming equipment to farm basically kyber crystals. Well, Starkiller doesn't use kyber crystals. It harnesses energy from suns and stuff. So it doesn't specifically say in this episode of The Mandalorian, but this is an ice planet with a canyon. It doesn't show that the canyon is on the equator, but it's just an ice planet with a canyon. Sorry for my antics and rambling on, but basically we're probably thinking this might be Ilum. It's super important and plays a lot. It plays a lot into the history of Star Wars. Although he loses the tail of the Republican centuries, the crest ends up trapped in a hole in the icy base of the planet. Frog Lady, being cold-blooded and requiring a warm environment, is immediately concerned when she sees that there's a hole in the hull, H-O-L-E, in the hull, H-U-L-L, from their crash, and she and her eggs might freeze. Desperate to instill a sense of urgency into Mando, she reprograms the droid head on the wall so she can speak through it. Excuse me. So basically, Mando doesn't understand Frog Lady's dialect or voice. And so she's sitting there as the Mandalorian's trying to fall asleep, trying to get some warmth. Baby Yoda is really cute because he cuddles up next to Mando. So, as you might remember, in Chapter 6 from Season 1, titled The Prisoner, there is a droid called Q90, and his name is AKA Zero. It was killed by Yoda. Well, not really killed by Baby Yoda. Baby Yoda thinks he killed Q90, but really it was the Mandalorian. But the droid head is still in the hull of the Razor Crest. And so as Mando's trying to get some shut-eye, Frog Lady looks and sees Q90's head and reprograms it so she can speak through a microphone, and it translates to English for Mando. So Mando gets super scared, wakes up because he hears Q90's voice say, "Mandalorian, wake up." She's like, I'm not gonna just sit around here and sit in the cold and watch my children die. She basically says, as Mandalorian's honor, you have to do this. It is a part of your code. So basically she guilts Mando into action. And at this point, the crest is 2 steps away from being completely trashed. But Mando starts repairing the ship. After a bit of fixing the ship up, Baby Yoda walks out and tries to get Mando's attention, and Mando's like, "What? I'm trying to fix the ship." And he turns on his thermal tracking on his helmet and sees that Frog Lady, she's walked away. And so he's like, "You kidding me?" Sure, the Frog Lady is an escaped prisoner, but she's also trying to do her best to keep her children, eggs, alive. So he follows Frog Lady through thermal footprints in the ice, and I guess you could say she finds this estuary, this warm, I guess you could say hot tub, and so she's bathing in the hot tub, her eggs are floating in the hot tub, and as this happens, he's like, okay, the Razor Crest is fixed, let's go on our way. So Mando helps fish out the eggs and put them in the tube backpack for Frog Lady. And she's getting dressed, and as this is happening, Baby Yoda, being the hungry little child that he is, goes over and sees these little eggs lying on the ground. And as you know from the Alien movies, whenever there is an egg, do not touch it, or in this case, eat it. And so Baby Yoda is like, I'm hungry, let me eat this. So he breaks it open, eats this disgusting spider-like looking thing, and then all of a sudden, it cuts to Mando and the Frog Lady, and the whole place is kind of rumbling, and then Baby Yoda does this sad cooing noise and starts running towards Mando, and then all of the eggs are breaking open. And this is freaking scary. Turns out these spider-like things are called Kryknas. They're huge, disgusting spider-like things, and these things could range from being the size of a Pomeranian to the size of freaking King Kong. These things are huge, and also, Baby Yoda is still hungry for Frog Lady's eggs. Again, that's not a euphemism. I swear. But basically right now, they're trapped on an ice planet with these Kryknas. All that she wanted was some warm water so her eggs could survive. So they run back to the Razor Crest, and they're held up in the cockpit. All three of them, including the eggs, Baby Yoda, Mando, Frog Lady, and the eggs. But Baby Yoda's insatiable hunger for eggs leads them into deadly peril. Again, Baby Yoda eats the Krykna eggs. Then there's thousands of Krykna. So they get into the Razor Crest. And so they're held up in the cockpit. These things are just ugly. If you have a chance, I was going to put a picture of a Krykna in the thumbnail, but apparently, since it is Disney owned, that can lead to me being copyrighted, so I'm not gonna do that. It's just like I've read so far. I mean, the episode's only been out for a day. A lot of people apparently a bunch of Star Wars fans have arachnophobia, and they couldn't finish this episode because they were spooked out by the Kryknas. I'm lost. I don't remember where I am. I talk about attention spans. With the age of quick entertainment, my attention span has gone down. So I'm really trying to, retrain my brain for my attention span. So what happens? They get stuck in the cockpit. Everything's okay. Baby Yoda slips another egg into his mouth. The Kryknaws are in the hull of the ship. The safe space is only the cockpit. Frog Lady saves Baby Yoda because there are tiny Kryknaws climbing on Baby Yoda, and he's doing sad Baby Yoda noises again. That's the saddest thing to ever hear. And so Frog Lady pulls out a little blaster, and she blasts some Kryknaws, and everything is okay. Mandalorian uses his flamethrower on his arm to spray, to basically roast these Kryknaws and close the cockpit. They are stuck in there, and there's this huge Kryknaw gets on top of the cockpit of the fallen Razor Crest. It's trying to break in, and all of a sudden there's blaster fire from out of nowhere. And you're probably thinking, geez, are these like Neo Imperials, Neo Stormtroopers? Nope, it is Captain Carson and Captain Wolf, and they have saved Mando, Frog Lady, Baby Yoda, and the eggs. Captain Carson and Captain Wolf are willing to essentially let Mando off with a warning, with a callback to Chapter 6, The Prisoner. Carson reveals that Mando's willingness to protect Lieutenant Davin, which is the guy who gets killed by the bandits that Mandalorian was with. Mando's willingness to protect Lieutenant Davin. Easter egg, the guy who played Lieutenant Davin is the guy who voice acted Anakin in the Clone Wars. Combined with the fact that he has apprehended culprits from the wanted register, makes them believe that Mando is not really a threat. But they're not so friendly that they'll help Mando fix the crest. Telling him to fix the crest and get a beacon, the two of them fly off. What's really cool is before Mando crashes into the ice planet, Mando tries to cool off the Republican X-Wings by saying, "May the Force be with you," which is the first time you hear this line said in The Mandalorian. That's basically it's a Jedi saying, which is weird because in season 1 Mando didn't really know who Jedi were. So is this like a loophole? Is this a hole in the plot? I guess we'll find out. So everyone's held up in the cockpit, the crest now with the punctured cockpit, and looking like it's ready to be broken down for parts, is now patched up enough to limp to Trask, which is where Frog Lady's husband is, where he will be able to complete the job. Here in the comics beat, they say it seems like next week we'll be picking up right after arriving at Trask, since Frog Lady said her husband has seen Mandalorians there. They said, "For me, this is an exciting episode, and yet it had the same feeling as The Marshal, full of callbacks, fun cameos, and good action. But will we get to the meat of the story soon?" I would say this episode wasn't as action-packed as The Marshal. Who directed this? Peyton Reed directed this episode. So who is Peyton Reed? Peyton Reed is the guy who did the Ant-Man series. It's pretty good. I love those Ant-Man movies. And it seems that there are a lot of the Alien movie callbacks with messing with the eggs. There also seems to be a callback to the original trilogy when Han Solo and the Millennium Falcon, they fly into a crater. Seems that they're in a giant moon worm and those suction cup bats stick to the cockpit of the Millennium Falcon. That seems to also be a callback. Let's look at some Easter eggs for the passenger. Now, if you want to listen to someone explain Easter eggs better than me, go ahead and listen to New Rockstars. I'll put their subscription link in the I'll put it down below where you guys can go listen to it. As of right now of recording this, they do not have an episode up right now. I think all they have up right now is just a reaction video to it, not an Easter egg video. Ooh, my grade was updated. Oh, I got a 74 on a paper. Oh well. I got a 97 on an exam. Ahaha. Alright, let's 18 Easter eggs. Alright, this is on GameSpot. Block, I don't want your updates. I don't even want to learn about Cyberpunk 2077 either. Okay. That one's not funny. Alright, Easter egg 1, not even relevant. Before leaving Mos Eisley, Mando stops by the cantina that first appeared in A New Hope. The recreation of the location is pretty spot on, with plenty of scum and villainy milling around. Easter egg 3, meet Dr. Mandible. While it's hard to say for sure, Dr. Mandible, the massive ant-like creature, looks a lot like the species known as a Killick. If that is, in fact, what the good doctor is, it marks the first live-action appearance of the species. The creatures were first introduced in the novel A Dark Nest 1, The Joiner King. It's also pretty funny that the Ant-Man director Peyton Reed directed this particular episode, given that led him to directing another very large ant. Haha, that makes sense. Easter egg 4, they're playing Sabacc. Like I mentioned before, that was also heavily featured in Solo. Easter egg 5. There's a very clever Galaxy Easter egg, Galaxy's Edge. Okay, so if nobody knows what Galaxy's Edge is, it's basically the cantina in Disneyland or Disney World. If you haven't been to Star Wars Galaxy Edge Disneyland or Walt Disney World, you probably missed this one. Outside of the cantina, Mando passes a WED-15 treadwheel droid roasting meat on a pod racer engine. When visiting Galaxy's Edge, you can visit an eatery called Ronto Roaster that purports to cook its meat in the same way. In reality, the massive burning pod racer engine in the eatery is for show, but it's still nice to see a Galaxy's Edge represented. Easter egg 6, I'm not some Rhodian. Now, if you don't know what Rhodians are, it's just Greedo. Pelly remarks that she's not some Rhodian, referring to the green-skinned species with large pupil-less eyes, which have popped up through the franchise. A number of Rhodians worked as bounty hunters like Greedo in A New Hope. 7. Travel sublight. Pelly tells Mando that the passenger can't travel using hyperdrive and instead must travel sublight. This refers to sublight engines that let ships fly at speeds below the speed of light. So to us normal humans, regular speed. Do we all live in sublight? That's a shower thought. Easter egg 8, do you speak Huttese? Clearly, Mando doesn't speak whatever language Frog Lady talks to him in. However, he does suggest they both use Huttese, the language spoken by the Hutts, including Jabba. Sadly, it doesn't seem that she knows Huttese. 9. X-Wings join the party. The New Republic cops that pull Mando over are flying iconic X-Wing ships. It gets the name from the shape of the wings when it enters in combat mode. Like I talked, they're called S-foils. They go shink, and they shape in an X. In fact, I have a Lego X-Wing on my desk right now. 10. Oh, 10 is just talking about Dave Filoni. 11. The New Republic. The pilot mentions to Mando that they represent the New Republic. Fans of the politics of Star Wars will remember that the New Republic is a government that rose following the destruction of the Empire. You might also remember that the New Republic was wiped out by the First Order in The Force Awakens because time is a flat circle in Star Wars. 12. May the Force be with you. I just mentioned that a couple minutes ago, but Mando may not be a Jedi, and the pilots likely aren't either, for that matter. Still, that didn't stop him from throwing a Jedi pleasantry in hopes it would keep the representatives of the New Republic from wanting to hold him up any longer, but it didn't work. 13, a callback to last season. Instead of letting him go, the pilots flag Mando for his involvement in the prison escape in Season 1, Episode Chapter 6, The Prisoner. One of the pilots even mentions Lieutenant Davin, the character played by Matt Lanter. At this point, I'm just repeating myself. I'm sorry. 14 talks about Q90. 15 talks about the Mandalorian Code, because the Frog Lady reminds Mando of the Mandalorian Code. We're not entirely sure how that fits this particular situation, as previously the Mandalorian Code was concerning one-on-one combat to settle disputes. It's how Sabine challenged Fen Rao on an episode of Star Wars Rebels. I don't know that callback because I have not seen Star Wars Rebels, but that is on my list to finally finish the Clone Wars and watch Star Wars Rebels all the way through. What are these disgusting spiders? Number 16, Krykna. I guess they've also been seen in Star Wars Rebels as well. Easter egg 17, Prisoner X6911. This is yet another callback to Season 1, Episode 6, The Prisoner. In it, Mando helps free a prisoner, which turns out the New Republic isn't very happy about. Could that be Frog Lady? X6911? Probably Frog Lady. That was a very good list of Easter eggs. If you watch the new Rockstars video, please go subscribe to them. I can't thank them enough. If you follow new Rockstars, they'll always give you scene-by-scene reactions and Easter egg updates. So their list of Easter eggs are probably a lot better. Their Easter eggs are probably a lot better. If you hear music in the background, it's because I accidentally left on a video game in the background. I have been playing Hollow Knight, and let me tell you, that is a fun, angering game. The only game I can really equal it to is like platforming Dark Souls, but not as hard. I really suck at video games, so. Let's see here. So, what is my review of this episode? I don't remember how I reviewed the last episode. Nate's awesome, fantastic Star Wars points? I don't remember. I guess this will be I guess every episode I'll give new review points. Points for the plot. Let's see here. They didn't really expand on the plot. Like I said, every Mandalorian episode has a plot in its own to further lead on the main plot of the series. So the main plot is Din Djarin is trying to find the Mandalorians that escaped Navarro in order to find the origin species of the child. But every episode gets interrupted by a different plot. And this plot was Frog Lady needed to get to Trask to find her husband, to fertilize the eggs, and her husband knows where the Mandalorians on Navarro are. But unfortunately, they get stuck on an ice planet, which might be Ilum. They get stuck on an ice planet with Kryknos, and the whole episode gets foiled because of Baby Yoda. I hate to say it, but Baby Yoda, come on, you knew better. But he's just a baby. I saw some people saying he's 50 years old. He knows better than that. But in his species, 50 years old is the equivalent of a baby. He depends on other people. So I guess, yeah, he is a baby. Let's see here. So I guess if I want to give points to the main plot, I would give it 5 out of 10 plot points. Now for the episode plot, I'd probably give it a 8 out of 10 plot points. Actually, let me make a note of how I'm doing these Star Wars reviews. It'd probably really help. Write down main plot points and episode plot points. Hopefully I remember that. How about action points? We know that this episode probably isn't as action-packed as last episode, The Marshal, but its callback references to Alien is pretty neato. So action points for last episode was 10 out of 10. This one, 7 out of 10. 7 out of 10 action points. Sorry, I was writing that down. Should we give more points to it? So this episode based on the other one, let's see here. The Marshal, main plot point. The main plot point for the last one, probably a 7 out of 10. Episode plot point, 10 out of 10. So that's 17 points going for it. Action points, 10 out of 10. So The Marshal has 27 points. This episode, 5 plus 7, 12. Yeah, 12. Jeez. I can't count. And action points, what did I say for action points? 8 out of 10. So this one comes in at 20 points, this episode. So let me write that down as well. So episode 1 had 27. Episode 2 had 20. And at the end of this season, I'll explain, I guess, what my favorite episode was. It's gearing up to looking like episode 1, because there's 30 points. There's 30 points out of the point tally, and episode 1 already has 27 points. Oops, dropped my pen. I'm really excited for next Friday to come, because I really want to watch the next episode. Thank you, Dad, for agreeing to buy another month of Disney Plus, because he really supports all of my family who listens to this, really supports me. But he said in order for me to finish up the season for The Mandalorian, he would pay another month for Disney Plus. So shout out to my dad, my mom, my brother, my aunt. I don't even know if my grandparents listen to this. I wouldn't want them listening to me cuss. I only really said one cuss word in this. Well, I'm not 13, I'm 20, so I live on my own. But I respect all of my family, and that's why I do not cuss in front of them. Although, brother, I do respect you, but we're brothers. That's why we cuss in front of each other. I love everyone who supports me, including those random people who have subscribed to me. I only know of like 5 or 6 family members who subscribe to me, and there's 2 people out there. Thank you to the 8 people who have subscribed to me. It's going to be a slow burn. There are going to be a lot of changes coming up here in the next year or so with this channel, because I would really, really like this to become a huge hobby of mine. There will be a lot of changes coming up in the next year or so. I really want to get a camera. I really want to start doing video podcasts. I'm really jacked for this. So sorry if these Mandalorian episodes aren't the best. Hopefully people find enjoyment out of them. Sorry if they aren't the best, because there's not a lot that happens in my life. It's just school and work, and that would constantly get boring. So that's why I recap the Mandalorian episodes, and that's why I give weird 30-point reviews on each episode. It's just something to speak my mind about, because since I live on my own and I live in a city where I don't have any friends, there isn't a lot for me to vent or talk about or experience or share my experience with seeing something for the first time with someone else. So with doing this podcast, it really helps me talk about what I love. I don't know if a lot of people listen to the end all the way. Hopefully you guys do. Hopefully you guys listen to it all the way at the end. But this podcast really just lets me speak my word about what I think about my passions and stuff. So, yeah, I really hoped you guys liked. What is this? Episode 4 now. I've been going for 4 weeks now. Wowee, huh? That's exciting. 4 weeks. Huh. So this was episode 4 of The Some of Us, where some of us really love The Mandalorian. I know I probably should have said that at the beginning of the episode, but I was just so excited to talk about The Mandalorian, because like I said in episode 3 of The Some of Us podcast, this is probably my favorite TV show of all time. So thank you guys so much for listening and supporting me. Shout out to all of my family and even those 2 random strangers. I think I know who the other one random stranger is. It's a family friend. If you guys want to support me further, other than just subscribing, liking, and commenting, you can become a patron in my Patreon, link down below. If you want to follow my social medias, my Twitter and my Instagram, they're also in the link down below. I will also link New Rockstar's subscription page in the link down below. I always, after recording these things, I always forget. I always think I probably forgot to say something. But don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you guys so much for listening to this. Next week will be episode 5 of the Some of Us podcast, over season 2, episode 3 of The Mandalorian. Thank you so much, guys, for listening to me talk about what I love so much. Bye-bye.